This week on the broadcast, we've talked about passion. We've talked about believing in a cause. We've talked about putting our finances and our heart into things that we're passionate about. And we talked about David and his passion for his God, passion for Israel. He wasn't going to allow some giant to take away his faith. He stood firm, stood strong, fought the giant. So now, I think about David, and of course he became the great king of Israel, and Scripture says that God said he was a man after his own heart, but we know that he did some things that displeased God. Two things in particular. One was the sin with Bathsheba, and of course what he did in having her husband killed. And then the other thing was the numbering of the people. We find this later on in his reign. And it's interesting, if you read the version in the Kings, that it says that God had more or less told him to do this. But if you go over to the book of Chronicles, it says, no, Satan did it. And it was a matter of pride. David was being caught up in the sin of pride because he wanted to know how big his army was. And what is fascinating about it, that if you know anything about the Kings and the Chronicles and all that portion of Scripture, you read about Joab, who was the captain of the host and a very brutal man, murdered people. Even he said, David, this is not good. You shouldn't do this. But the king ordered to be done, and as a result, God sent an angel to a prophet to tell him that this was displeasing unto the Lord. And he said, there's a price to be paid. And there were different options offered. And David chose to put himself in the mercy of God. In other words, he would deal with the wrath of God rather than the wrath of men. And so God sent a death angel over. And it's an astounding story. Thousands of people were slain by the death angel. And finally, it came to Jerusalem. And the Spirit of God came and said, you need to pray that this would be stayed. And there he was over the threshing floor of a man by the name of Araunah. And King David runs with his host, and he says to Araunah, he says, I need your threshing floor and your threshing instruments. We need to offer a sacrifice right here. And Araunah said, take it. It's yours. Another one of those profound statements that David made. And he said, no, I won't just take it. Because he says, I will not offer to God that which cost me nothing. In other words, if it is not a sacrifice on my part, that I'm going to have to give something here in order to be able to stop this death angel. To me, it's another one of those things that speaks volumes to us. If I have a passion for God, if I have a passion for His kingdom, but I'm not willing to sacrifice for my passion, then my passion doesn't seem to be very passionate, does it? This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.